now indicate an expected growth in the industry, trends, product, technology. The pricing which they have quite attractive enough, and they are able to give a more customization to all their products. Every major segment will have a unique customer base. Try to promote that unique customer base. Keep that in your mind. The strategy in greater detail in the rest of your business proposal. Good morning and welcome to the third session in Unit 5, Entrepreneurship and Small Business Management, where we are going to see the third part of the industry report overview, which is a very, very important factor that we were talking about. Now, when we talk about the industry review report, we were speaking about the different formats that we have to follow in order to make the report look interesting. Now, with that conclusion, with that providence factor, let's get into the market analysis. Now, indicate an expected growth in the industry, trends, product, technology. Now, what is very important here is that when you write a review about a company, you need to know what are their products, how are their products trending in the market, and at what level the market share is expected to grow for the company. Why this is important? Because when a company reads your review report or any other investor goes through the report, they will find the statistics more interesting rather than just the history of the company. So it becomes very important for us to understand the factors of technology, marketing, retailing, which is actually impacting the particular factors of the entire industry. Now, we have to also define the competitive landscape in a general way. The rest of the business will elaborate on the state of competition, which is quite normal altogether. We don't have to worry about it too much. But then the competitive landscape, as I want to just spend a moment there, because whenever we are looking into an industry, there are n number of competitors who are already existing and influencing that particular space. So you cannot avoid that competition. You have to highlight it. Now, for example, if I'm going to write about Havells company, there are people who are already there in the market which are equally good like Havells in the electrical components and switches business altogether. So I would not be able to just project Havells as a market leader and leave it. I need to tell who are all the people who are in line in terms of manufacturing the same kind of components and product. So competitive landscape adds flavor to the report by telling you exactly where the company is heading today. Now, the next thing is that healthy industries are high growth and generally profitable with a stable customer base. What an interesting factor, and a few barriers to entry. Reason is very, very clear that we have to write here. Why? Because whenever we are talking about this generally profitable with a stable customer base and few barriers to entry, this is very important. Why? Because today if you start looking into industries which are having a very constant and a high growth market share, they are people who tend to dominate and stay in the market for a long time. Now, if I'm going to take the example of Hyundai car manufacturing here, what does Hyundai typically tend to do is that they try to keep the customer base as strong as possible, and they have a very large and a wide customer base. Primarily the ideology, if I look into the factors of Hyundai altogether, the probable reason is that the range of cars which they produce, the pricing which they have quite attractive enough, and they are able to give a more customization to all their products. So that's why probably Hyundai has been able to understand the Indian market very well and has been able to keep up with the competition with Maruti or with Tata Motors altogether. So in that scenario, when you are going to write a market analysis, you will be able to understand this concept of stable customer base and a few barriers to entry. Why? Because probably if you look at Hyundai today, if they want to enter into any segment, be it electric or be it non-electric vehicles that we are talking about, they have the capacity, they have the ability to do so and capture capture the market, and their marketing has been really attractive enough in spite of the factor that there are several players who have landed up in the Indian automobile space, but still Hyundai is able to carve a niche for itself by constantly innovating and trying to come up with new variants altogether. So that's why I would say that this market analysis factor will provide a better scope for the customers to understand the scenario. Followed by, industry should be avoided, those who have a declining or generally an unprofitable share altogether. We never want to look into the negative landscape altogether. So that's why we try to avoid companies which are already on the declining phase altogether. So when I'm talking about that decline stage here, I don't want to look into those companies because their profits are dipping. Probably they have lost interest in the minds of the customer and their market share are not growing at all. Now this is quite evident because either I have forgotten about the innovation or I have forgotten that the market has become too regulated, the market has become too competitive for me to survive. So in that case, in that scenario, I'm not going to be a part of this market at any given point of time. So with that, I definitely know that the markets will have their own challenges, markets will have their own factors coming into picture. Now, the next thing which I want to talk about is the outlook and the demographic info that we are talking about. The analysis should describe who are the major customer groups, are unique properties to each, and what is the age of your target customer. What we tend to forget in most of the analysis is that why are we doing this report? For whom are we doing this report? Typically, if I want to ask this question, the reason is if you say that I am doing a report for a generic purpose, for an overall basis, then the answer is no. Why? Because you need to have a target customer. You need to know who your audience are. If you do not know the audience, if you do not know to whom are you presenting this report, the report might be a failure altogether. So that's why I would always like to say that every major segment will have a unique customer base. Try to promote that unique customer base. Keep that in your mind always, that I am trying to work for this segment. My report shall address this group in detail. Then automatically you will be able to get that answer. Now, what is their race and the ethnicity? What are their needs and wants? So I'm primarily going back to all the basic questions that you need to ask. The needs and the wants factor, which try to tell you very clearly how things are moving. Where is it catching up? How we are, trying to push those different factors at any given point of time. So that's where I would typically look into this aspect, where I would say that yes, this is a very big push, a very big scenario factor altogether. So that's why I would always say that this is the opportunity, this is the level at which we are trying to build up an entire system or service altogether. Now, consider about how they think on your choices. Why? Because when a customer makes a choice, customer decides that yes, we will start building up the system, we will start growing up with this particular base altogether, then the choices, the aspects of growth, the aspects of thought process automatically starts pushing up. It automatically starts coming up to that level where they start thinking that yes, we have made the right choice. This is the decision that we were looking in for, and this is what we want to hear about the company at any given point of time. Now, the next thing is that in addition to considering your current customer base, think also about the expansion of product or service to attract new customers. Market has always been the most attractive factor, where you try to add customers, where you try to put people in different zones, in different scenario, and tell people every time, why don't we take customers at different angles, at different levels altogether. So I would always say this factor, that if you think that there is an opportunity for you to promote that product, to promote that service to the next level, and there is a scope that is available as we are thinking about. So please think about the future generation. Now, if I go back to the example of Hyundai itself, now Hyundai might be trying to categorize themselves as an SUV player also onto the small car segment. But then Hyundai might have not thought about a factor that where we will try to target the people who want to go for a pure electric car segment. So suppose you feel that Hyundai has got the potentiality of entering that market and promoting it to the next level as far as possible, then please take that opportunity to go ahead and create an edge, create a competitive outlook, try to attract people into that segment through your report, which will be of a great help to that industry. Followed by, when we try to talk about the analysis to prescribe a strategy for the near future, let's say that we will lay out the strategy in greater detail in the rest of your business proposal. Include a detailed timeline, specific goals like, your revenues, your market share, what you hope to attain. So what now we are trying to do is that we are trying to create an entire different factor. We are trying to create a market share, a picture that will be more detailed, that will be more in-depth, focused for the people so that they understand what exactly we are looking for and how things are changing at the different given level altogether. Followed by addressing of marketing strategies, product development, workforce, the retainment of your position. All these things will add on a better promotion, a better feature in terms of reading or going through your report. Now, the one interesting factor when I talk about the marketing strategy is that how have you looked into your product? How have you taken your product stage by stage? Now, if I go back to the same Hyundai example, starting from the age-old Santro to the recent car called as the Alcazar, they have been able to create a step-by-step promotional basis from a small-time family car to a full-sized SUV altogether. Now, that has been possible because they have understood the needs, they've understood the wants, they have understood a factor, they've understood the Indian psychology in terms of a family traveling experiences, in how about the going in the city roads, off the city roads, and all those factors which has come into picture, and they have been able to develop their workforce, their products, their marketing, their branding completely to the Indian soil. So that would be enhanced more when you are trying to project, when you are trying to make it even more clear, even more focused through your reports. Now, you could also close the project report with a call to an action, a statement that given the current state of market, it is advisable to implement the following business proposal. Now, most of the time at the end of your report, I would always suggest that give an actionable item to the customers, to the people who are going to go through your report. That's mandatory. Why? Because at the end of the day, you need to give some room for thinking to the company. There should be something interesting for me to pick up from that report, read, understand, and take it forward. If that is not going to happen, if that is not going to be spoken about, then we are not doing a great job at all. Why? Because we would start feeling that somewhere down the lane, we have not done this activity, we have not taken it according at all. So that becomes a very, very big question mark altogether. So we want to see that the factors of understanding through the entire report. Is there something for me to read? Is there something for me to understand? Is there something for me to really go through in terms of the business proposal, in terms of the factors altogether? So that would definitely put me on a top edge. That would definitely put me onto a situation where I can understand, where I can read and go through the entire phenomenon. So definitely, I would say that this is highly needed. This is the need of the hour in terms of thinking it. Followed by the pare the report down to the appropriate manageable size. Industry analysis typically runs to 2 or 3 pages. You need to tweak the length of your report based on how it needs to be presented. So please don't make it too elaborate that it keeps running pages after pages and then you are not able to control the factors of your presentation. It is very, very mandatory you keep it clear, concise at all levels, and then plan the report in such a manner ensure that the part of the business plan that we are trying to talk about, the analysis should be kept short. It should be interesting to that particular point. Then automatically you will be able to see that the growth is happening extremely well. And that's how it really matters a lot in terms of understanding the business. Now, when you finally edit the report, your report will be presented independently. You have more freedom to devote lots of space for the raw data, for the detailed description that you have done. All these factors have to be given space, have to be given importance. Please put on the footnotes wherever the source of data, how you have taken it, how you have driven it, all those factors. Please give a lot of importance and thought factor that, because that will definitely develop the potentiality in terms of your description, in terms of your report factor. That will make it in a very, very big way in terms of taking it forward. Now, with that, I come to the conclusion of this session. I hope and believe that all the information shared through this particular session will be of a great help and benefit to you. With that, we come to the conclusion of the entrepreneurship and small business management. I hope and believe that all these sessions will be of a great resource. It will definitely provide you an instant knowledge and guidance, both practically and theoretically, about the subject. Thank you for going through this session. And once again, a very big thank you for joining me on this wonderful session today.